to give a thumbs up to Align Pilates, but I also want to talk to you about working with people in larger bodies on the reformer. I'm a fairly new reformer teacher. I have been doing mat Pilates since 2002, teaching mat Pilates since 2002, probably doing Pilates since 1999. But it's, for me, teaching reformer is a fairly new modality. But I just wanted to share with you what I have learned over the last, I don't know how many months, 5 or 6 months that I've been teaching. I teach 11 reformer classes a week, and there's nothing like repetition and teaching a lot to really help you figure out what's going on. And that's how I became really interested in getting variations, modifications, and equitable practices in yoga. Was I owned a studio and I taught 22 classes a week, and that made me really see what people needed and how to work with different bodies. And I'm seeing that same thing here now. A couple of things: if you're working with people who are in bigger bodies and might have a lot of adipose tissue or extra skin at the belly. So a lot of things you're not going to notice when you're teaching that is when you encourage your students to pull their belly button into their body. And so I say that as opposed to pulling their belly button into their spine, just giving yourself an internal hug. I feel that language really helps people to make peace with this part of their body. A lot of people who have weight here, who have a lot of adipose tissue here, can be really sensitive about that part of their body and can feel some kind of way about it. Bringing attention to it makes them sometimes feel a little bit self-conscious. So what I will say is I want you to draw into your center, draw into your core, pull your belly button into your body as you give yourself that internal hug. Those are things I like to say to my students that help them feel better about certain parts of their body. Because let's just be honest, everybody has a part of their body that they feel some kind of way about. And I wish we could get past that as a culture and society, but it's a work in progress for all of us. Another thing that I would recommend, and this is going to be controversial, but stick with me here, is that if you're working with people with adipose tissue or a bigger belly, you're gonna have to gear out the machine for comfort. On different machines that has maybe a pedal to gear out. What I like about my machine is it's really easy to gear it out. All I'm doing is making more space from the foot bar to the carriage. And so right here, I can just, for me, it's really easy because I just lift up the gear and push it out. Now the carriage is further away. Why would that be important? If you have adipose tissue or a bigger belly here, you're gonna be squished. It's gonna feel compressive. Maybe, like for me, the belly pushes up against my breast and my breast pushes up against my neck, and then I'm completely unhappy on the reformer. For some people, even though they might not be over 5'5" or 5'7" or whatever the proper height is to gear out, we need to gear them out to make space, and they will still have their knees over their hips. They won't be in a compromised position, but they'll be in a more comfortable position to do the exercise more correctly. And as we explore those 6 principles of Pilates, which is breath, right? Center, control, concentration, flow. I always forget the 6th one. Breath, flow, concentration, center. I'll list them below. I'm having a complete brain fart. I can always get 5 of them and then I inadvertently miss the 6th one. Anyway, gearing out can be really helpful for people not to have a lot of compression or feel squished on the machine, as well as adjusting the foot bar to a different location can help that. So when we're getting onto the reformer, I also tell people it's awkward. And regardless of the size of the body you're in, it's awkward getting on the reformer. And that is also okay, right? That getting down and just taking your time getting down there, this is your concentration. Up, the 6th one was precision. Precision, I just remembered. I always tell people a couple of things when they're coming to their reformer is I pick 3 of the 6 principles to really focus on in my classes. So when I move that carriage away, it gives me a little bit more space here. I'll also ask people to take their feet out a little bit wider during footwork or anything we're doing, once again, to make space for that adipose tissue in the body. And in some cases, depending on the size of the body or what they're feeling, you may need to add a little bit more springs for just a little bit more resistance. Or if you're doing bridge work, you may need to add more springs, because lifting this part of your body, if you're in a bigger body, is super heavy as opposed to a lighter body where it's not going to be as heavy. So we need maybe a little bit more support to push into with more springs on the carriage. That might be something in bridging, not in everything, but in bridging. Another thing that you might want to consider is if you are dealing with somebody who has luxury luggage. I was not blessed with luxury luggage, perhaps, but I was blessed with a lordotic spine. What does that mean? I have a very flexible low back and I have a very big curve in my back, almost a shelf there. And sometimes when I'm invited to do any kind of articulation, I have a tendency to go overboard when I'm pushing my sit bones toward the carriage and really creating that arch in my back because I can, because it's something I'm used to. Really cueing people to notice, that's your precision and concentration, to notice what they're feeling and not to push all the way out or arch their back all the way out because we don't want to create that strain. Another thing you're going to notice with people who are in larger bodies, especially if they're carrying their weight in their legs and their thighs, is often, and this is the key for me, my tabletop's going to look like this as opposed to this. I want you to look at what's happening in my hips. This is what's happening in my hips when I'm in tabletop here. Look what's happening in my low back when I'm in tabletop here. I was recently in a reformer class and the teacher came and adjusted me to here, which is more of a tabletop position. But now my low back is arching away from the reformer in a way that's really uncomfortable for my back. And now my transverse abdominis, that low ab, when I go to engage it, feels pressure. Now I'm starting to arch, watch, arch, arch, arch. Now I'm starting to get tired, arch, arch, arch. And this starts to happen, or this starts to happen. And then we load the springs, and this is not a fun place to be in. If you see folks who are tending, and I cue this, especially if people are in larger bodies, tabletop with the toes pointing to where the ceiling meets the wall or some cue across the room from them, they can have their tabletop more here, especially with that big curve, or if they are booty-tastic, than here, because it does create that uncomfortable pull. For me, I can feel that pull at the top ridge of my pelvis. I can feel my knees and the bottom half of my weight starting to get heavy. And then you're going to see people do this because their legs are tired, right? Have them draw in more. Here's the difference. I, as a person with a hypermobile low back, need more of this and less of this. And that's me. It's going to be different from teacher to teacher or client to client. But this is something I want you to think about. Having tabletop look like this as opposed to looking like this. We need that strength. I'm still working my core. The other thing I like to tell my students is if your head becomes this 30-pound bowling ball, your abs have let go and have like left the party, picked up their stuff and left. What you want to do is I like to tuck my shoulder blades underneath me so I can lift up or place that ball behind my head, or all reformers have this adjustable headrest. So you encourage people to use that adjustable headrest as they are lifting up. You can also encourage folks to keep their head down. Depending on how much they have chest pushing up against them, that can feel suffocating and scary. Also, I also like to teach people not so much reps, sorry, I'm just liking the movement here, not so much reps as in creating an amount of time where people can work. So we are going to do this next exercise for 15 seconds. Do as many as you can in 15 seconds. And the language that I will use is like, if you could only do 2, that's great. 4 or 6, it doesn't matter. Do as many as you can with good form, control, and precision and breath. Do as many as you can in that form, because if you do the exercise properly, we don't need to do millions of repetition, because you will get to that muscle failure, which is on your way to muscle strength, a lot faster because you're being really precise with your movements. Those are some things or some tips that I like to share with newer teachers that I have found really helpful in my teaching of Pilates. And again, I've only been a reformer teacher, I want to say, since about March. So I've been really working hard on watching all the bodies and doing all kinds of great stuff. Shout out to Breathe Pilates, where I first started to teach reformer, and to my students there who allowed me to practice with them. Shout out to my bestie, Julianne, who comes every week, and when I got my reformer, allowed me to kind of figure out how to move a smaller body on the reformer, and then my own body, a bigger body on the reformer. And a shout out to Club Pilates, where I'm currently working. That gives me a lot of opportunities to practice this craft that I love. I love yoga, and I certainly love Pilates, and Pilates really helps to inform my yoga practice, especially if I'm working with folks who are in a rehabilitative state. Everything that I did on the reformer today can absolutely be mimicked on your mat, including the moving back and forth of the carriage. I don't know if you can see it because it's white and the wall is white, but I do have a foam roller that I used before I had a reformer. And the foam roller underneath your feet, rolling out and in, can mimic the pushing away of the foot bar. I just wanted to share that with you today. This is a new series that I'm creating. This is part of a teacher training that I am facilitating, and I wanted to share with the world some of the things that I've come to learn as a newer Pilates teacher in a non-conforming, bigger, larger, fat, plus size, fluffy, abundant body. I hope you found this helpful. Let me know by dropping a heart in the comment below, or letting me know if there's any other content you'd like me to share from the Pilates yoga space. Thank you, everybody, and I'll catch you next time.